We continue our conversation now with our political roundtable. And Thomas, I'll start with you. If this was a sports league and we were talking about putting together our dream team, our fantasy football league, the fact of the matter is the most qualified people to be vice president, it wasn't that he had to pick a female. He would have been dumb not to pick a female. I kept trying to figure out who else would he pick. Are we seeing an example of the fact that the best candidates in this case were women, and the best candidates among the women, with the possible exception of maybe Elizabeth Warren or Gretchen Whitmer, were black females?
Yeah, well, I would argue that probably Elizabeth Warren is just as qualified to be vice presidential candidate as Senator Harris. I think Senator Harris just appeals to a larger and a more meaningful demographic for this election, so it just made the most sense. I think that even as we had the racial unrest and we understand that like her role as a prosecutor and her role in the criminal justice system in California, she was able to underscore like some of the systematic issues that she was part of and how, you know, she wished she could handle it better. And then she also laid out a really comprehensive plan addressing some of the prosecutorial, excuse me for mispronouncing that word, and criminal justice issues that we have in this country. So she just really appealed to some of the salient issues that we have on the ticket.
That's part of your Harvard education backfiring you on there. You know, I'm glad you went to those HBCUs to get the pronunciations right. But Jesse, what does it say about the fact that black men are absent from this process right now? We had 8 years of Barack Obama, Eric Holder as the Attorney General, and yet when we entered into this dialogue, the number of people being discussed openly about being qualified or overqualified, for instance, like a Susan Rice, were all black females.
Well, let's be clear. Black men have not been absent from this process simply because Joe Biden wouldn't be the Democratic presidential candidate if not for Jim Clyburn in South Carolina. His candidacy would have ended a long time ago. We wouldn't even be having this discussion about Kamala Harris if not for Jim Clyburn. And you can already see a fear coming from the Trump campaign because they're already sending out campaign calls worrying about Cory Booker being part of a Biden administration. There are many other positions in a White House that are still to be filled, and you have people like Cory Booker still out there who would probably jump at being HUD secretary, White House chief of staff, defense secretary, treasury secretary. There are so many other jobs that black men can hold of power in a Biden administration. So I don't think we're at the point where we have to worry about black men being excluded. It's just that right now it's Kamala Harris's time and we have to celebrate it.
And Brian, Jesse hit the nail right on the head. James Clyburn, kingmaker right now. We have heard the names like Karl Rove, Lee Atwater, James Carville discussed as being the genius behind the candidate. What does James Clyburn deserve, and how should he be regarded, do you think, in this particular political moment?
Well, I think Mr. Clyburn is definitely a kingmaker, but he's been a kingmaker for some time. I mean, he played a role in Barack Obama's election. He played a role, in Clinton's, support in South Carolina. He's been an active player for a long time, and he's an active player before that, based on his civil rights background and SNCC and some of the other work that he did during the civil rights movement. So he's been a kingmaker in South Carolina for a long time. He should be looked at as one of those historic people who made that kind of difference and, push those levers. One of those, power brokers in D.C. that you don't always hear about, but when you hear about them, they're moving the dial. And he's been that for a long time.
And Thomas, are we now looking at the final end of the Iowa caucuses? Let's be realistic. This campaign began in South Carolina.
This campaign for Joe Biden was resurrected in South Carolina, but the campaign for him started many years ago. I would make the argument, but we are coming to an end. It's going to be really exciting to see the road leading down to November. But I just want to caution Joe Biden that just sitting back and doing that, like, this isn't a victory right now. Appointing Senator Harris does not equate to an easy victory. He still has to keep his foot on the gas. This is not the time for him to sit in his basement and remain quiet. Now is the time to really be forefront with the policies and agendas that he has for the country. Be pushing those heavy and try to rally the people and prepare for mail-in ballots.
That reminds me of the sporting scene since we began this block by talking sports, to the guy that goes into the locker room and the coach says, we got to play better on defense, we got to play better on offense, and our special teams stink. And the player looks up and he says, Coach, but we're ahead by 80. And the coach says, yeah, but we got another half to play. When we come back, let's talk about cabinets. We'll be right back.